remember when Republicans running for office, this is another sign of the sort of move from subtext to text of the Republican Party. They might get a question, say, from a earnest high school student or a, nice young elementary school student that might say like, hey, I'm a little concerned, Mr. Republican politician, because I'm actually growing up and I would like my world to not resemble Blade Runner.
Gee, mister, are you sure now's the time to cut the EPA?
Yeah, like, golly gee, mister, it seems like all those scientists up there think that climate change is real and might not be too good for my health or kids in other countries that might get flooded. And then the Republican would be like, young lady or young man, well, first, I want to say thank you for being out here today. And thank you for taking... Don't you feel confident about democracy when this young man talks or this young lady talks? And then they would go on to say, well, it sure is a complicated one. And God, of course, I'm not going to do anything about it because I'm literally a lab creation of the fossil fuel interests. But gosh darn it, good to see you out here today. Well, it's 2018, and we have a different Republican Party. And this is, not in terms of substance, but in terms of text to subtext to text. This is Republican gubernatorial candidate Scott Wagner. He's running for governor of Pennsylvania. And a young woman, by which I mean, I think like a high school student, is going to ask him why he is so retrograde and dangerous on climate. And he ain't going to respond with the usual pleasantries about appreciating young people being in the process. Forget that.
Change is an issue that needs to be addressed, but you have said that climate change is a result of people's body heat and are refusing to take action on the issue. Does this have anything to do with the $200,000 that you have taken from the fossil fuel industry?
Rose, I appreciate you being here. You're 18 years old, and you're a little young and naive. But let me, Rose, let's talk about something else. Rose, and I appreciate you being here. But here's the, are we here to elect a governor, or are we here to elect a scientist? Okay, I'm here to be the governor. Now, Rose, I understand and I appreciate, and I know the questions. But I have one for you, Rose. Climate change is important. We all hear about it. But Rose, in 2016, there was a story in the Wall Street Journal about sinkholes in Harrisburg, okay? And the story started out, a woman was in her home, she heard this huge crashing noise, and she opened up her door and went out, and there was a huge sinkhole that had developed in her street. So the Wall Street Journal wrote that article in 2013, and it was all about the city of Harrisburg and how ancient and outdated the infrastructure was in the city of Harrisburg. And the story went on to say that when the city of Harrisburg has large rainfalls, which generate large amounts of stormwater, the sewage treatment plant cannot handle all the rainwater in the sewage. So they discharge raw sewage into the Susquehanna River. Now, you want to talk about that, or you want to talk about climate change? I'm more interested in the sewage that's going in the Susquehanna River.
I like how he's like, first of all, listen, you dumb little bitch. I'm not trying to be the scientist. I'm trying to be the governor. Secondly, climate change, sure, yeah, whatever. Body heat's a big issue. Thirdly, here's another issue that I'm going to do absolutely nothing about as an austerity Republican. Infrastructure. And fourth, actually, those intensified rainstorms and issues like sewage going into the river because of both degraded infrastructure, which I support as an austerity Republican, and all evidence actually suggests that climate change actually does intensify things like storms. So I'm actually going to indirectly address your question again. That guy is a unbelievable scumbag. And look, I want, and I think he will, it's a very important gubernatorial race in Pennsylvania to reelect Governor Wolf. He's actually a pretty decent governor, and Pennsylvania is a crucial state to register and vote in and vote for Democrats across the board for a variety of reasons. But there's a certain part of me, the poetic justice part of me, wants this guy to hold some nominal office that this young woman, as soon as she's old enough, can just run against him and beat him in a landslide. Because, yeah, she gave him a little bit of heat, and rightfully so, because he's a pawn of the fossil fuel industry. And to respond to her like that, it's such a level of crude stupidity. I mean, isn't it disturbing even to people who maybe forget the merits of it, that it's like, oh, wow, somebody who's 15, 16 years old gave an articulate, important, and informed question
About how you might be too interested in a topic to be neutral on it.
right, and his response was to be, I mean, look, condescending and moron is not a great combo. I get you're a little naive. Anyways, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal. Ever heard of that?
Yeah, so Scott Wagner.
What a scum.
His money comes from, he owns a waste management business called KBS Trucking. And that question, do we want to hire, or are we electing a governor or a scientist, right? Like, I don't think governorship should be run like a science.
No,
but I
of course
also
not.
think that they shouldn't be run like a CEO either.
And especially not.
I would rather vote, just all things else being equal, I'd rather elect a scientist than a CEO.
Every single time, practically. Also, it reminds me of an old Onion headline where it was like something like, it was like chicken CEO, guy basically was like CEO of like an agribusiness where like, chickens are held in cages and tortured and defecate on each other, essentially, which is what all big, farm agribusinesses are. Promises to take his same leadership methods to Washington. Like, he's like, I'm going to do for you what I've done for the chickens at all of my factories. That's exactly what you should think of every time you hear about CEO leadership.